Do you think any teacher helped him with this? The teachers that
Absolutely.
He met
So we already mentioned, brother. Let me just read one more thing. This he says much later. Keep away from psychic practices and occult explorations. They are filled with dangers and pitfalls. And we see he's speaking from experience. First, devote your energies to the foundational work of learning philosophy, improving character, disciplining emotion, and cultivating calmness.
Because that point is so important, correct, Micha-El? Because sometimes people contact us, for example, asking what the PB said about astral body. Like people say, I have during the dream, I'm going to the astral. I want to develop the psychic faculties, and we always say that PB really don't encourage you to do that, because this isn't really mean that you are developing your spiritual path. Don't mean that. When you do much meditation, as PB said, you become so sensitive, for sure. But don't mean that you are like, going higher in the path. Because to be a philosopher don't mean that you have to go like to be in the astral. You have like to, to contact it. You have to develop these faculties at the reverse. Maybe ask for don't have this because was interfering. If you have, it's okay, but you don't have to looking for that. That is the difference, correct? If you have, you have. If you have, it's because for some reason, as him, like he had, because he needed to pass through this experience. But it's important for us to understand that if we meditate, possible you be more sensitive, and be prepared for that.
And you might have to stop meditating. So there's another side comment about teachers. You might meet a teacher who has occult powers, right? Mm-hmm. You might meet a teacher who will say, tonight you will go home and dream of me. And you go home and dream of the teacher and think, wow, that's really my teacher. Maybe that person is your teacher. You can learn something, but they're not enlightened. They just have psychic powers. So one more quote. I have abandoned the study and practice of occultism. I have given it up unwillingly, for the power it promises is not to be despised. Yet I recognize, I love these quotes that Bibi says about himself. I recognize that my past is strewn with errors and mistakes. I imagine that a great personal experience of the psychic and mysterious side of nature would bring me nearer truth. As a fact, it has taken me farther from truth. Once I enjoyed a frequent glimpse of great bliss and an intense state of samadhi, which we read that earlier. But alas, I was too young and too green to know what was happening. The bliss went before long, the samadhi stopped, and I was cast upon the shore of the finite, an unhappy and problem-puzzled bit of human wreckage. So, what did he say about teachers?
But since that he met somebody who helped him.
Yes. So PB wrote week before. He said, I then met an advanced mystic, an expatriate American living in Europe, who told me that I was near the point to advance. So this person is called Brother M. His human name was Charles Willis Thurston. He was a very important person in PB's life. He lived from 1872 to 1937. PB actually named his son Kenneth Thurston Hurst after Brother M. PB was part of a small group of spiritual seekers, and his roommate, Michael Just, wrote a book. It's a novel called The White Brother, an occult autobiography. But it's based on their experiences with Brother M as their teacher, and the figure in the book who's called David is modeled after PB. This book is out of print, but it's interesting because you see they live this kind of confused, bohemian, poor seeker's life. It reminded me of the Opera La Boheme for the artists, but these were spiritual seekers. They went through many difficult times together, but Brother M was a very important teacher for them. Brother M, there's 2 books that Michael Just recorded, the sayings and teachings of Brother M, the Day Springs of Youth. I found that it was too much concerned with occultism and psychic and other intermediate realms, so I didn't finish it. But M clearly had something, and he said to PB, "You will raise an ancient statue now lying half buried in the sand and reveal it as a thing of worth. This was the prediction made to me by Brother M." So Brother M had a glimpse of PB's destiny, that PB was going to reawaken this ancient tradition of philosophy for modern times. When PB was going to India, Brother M wrote, "May you gain your greater illumination and receive the support you so deserve. When you next see me, I hope to see that you have been successful in your quest. If so, what a happy time it will be for both of us." So they had frequent meetings. And then PB wrote to Michael Just. Brother M wrote to Michael Just about PB while PB was in India. And Brother M said, remember, he was called Raphael Hurst at that point, "I shall be glad to hear the news from Raphael, and I hope that he has found what he has been seeking. I often think that it is nearer to home than in India." So Brother M is saying what PB later said, that the gold I was really looking for wasn't in India.
And PB himself also concluded
yes,
that.
We'll read later that PB
and
said,
say here.
Yeah, that PB realized that PB became disillusioned later on in his life with India, but that's much later. And then Brother M says, "Let me know when Raphael is back. I shall enjoy having a talk with him." So Brother M was really important first teacher of PB. And as we said, PB became disillusioned with the East later on. And he said, these are PB's words, "The West must seek its own enlightenment."
Yeah. And that is what happened, correct?
That's what he did.
That we are going to see during, discussing the life of PB. We could, in the end, you are going to conclude that is what he did in the end, correct? He
presented us the teachings that the West needs for its own enlightenment. And it's interesting because as India and the East become modernized or westernized, now PB is becoming more and more relevant to Easterners who are living in a more westernized world.
Yes, and at this moment we are speaking only with the early teachers, but he had other teachers that we are going to share with you in the next video, because they also were important for his conclusion that he has to, to looking for the East, the West, and take care as PB saying his words, correct?
That the West has to find its own enlightenment. So,
and he had more teachers.
He had 2 more important teachers before he went to India. One was named Alan Bennett. Alan Bennett was born in 1872 and died in 1923. He was very interesting because he was an Englishman and he was a chemist. He was actually responsible for many important scientific discoveries. So he was like a very westernized scientific person. But he became disillusioned and he went to Sri Lanka and Burma, and he actually became the first Western Buddhist monk. He was ordained as a Buddhist monk, and he came back. He wanted to introduce Buddhism to the West. When he came back, he founded the first Buddhist organization in England, and he founded a journal of Buddhism. And somehow, we don't know how he met PB, but he asked PB if PB would help him. And PB said, "He requested me to assist him, and out of affection for his fine person, respect for his spiritual attainment, and reverence for the name of the Buddha, I gladly agreed, devoting my weekends or evenings for the purpose." Ananda Mate was very important for PB because he reinforced this idea that PB should avoid occultism, because actually Ananda Mate was very immersed in occultism himself early on. He really emphasized the merging of science and spirituality, right? He was a Buddhist monk who was a chemist. At that time, PB, when he was in his 20s, wrote a journal article called The Occult Value of the Scientific Attitude. Ananda Mattei had terrible personal health challenges. He was in pain all the time. So he reinforced this theme of persistence. And PB said, "It is my well-considered belief that Ananda Mattei was a bodhisattva, come from a higher plane to penetrate those Western minds which could appreciate and benefit by Buddhism as meeting their intellectual and spiritual needs. He gave the hidden impetus, but others came to later to do the outer work." Maybe PB is one of them. Is that right? Ananda Mattei gave this impulse and PB did the work later. Mm-hmm. He was the most advanced Western yogi of the first 2 decades of this century, my belief. Then he says, "But I could not honestly join the International Buddhist Society, which Ananda Mattei had founded, as I could never bring myself, even then or now, to wear a doctrinal label." So this is another characteristic of PB. He doesn't join groups. He doesn't become a devotee of, he left theosophy. He can't put himself in a box. Mm-hmm. He needs to be independent, even while he's serving as the assistant to the most prominent Buddhist teacher in the West at that time. So lastly, he says, "For the remaining few years until his death, we were close friends. He taught me the lofty ethic and stern ascetic philosophy of his faith. He helped me towards 2 precious positions, a rational, balanced outlook." So that's one of the points of the philosophic story, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. "And the desire to bring some light from archaic Asia to help the adolescent West. He stimulated me spiritually and quickened my dawning determination to decipher the profound enigma of life." So PB's saying, I still didn't have the answers, but now I was getting some good help.